Mark here from Mark 2.0. Brian's my co-host, and we welcome actor Jason Peck, East Coast-based theater artist and educator, actor, director, you name it. Welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is just such a thrill. And I want to start out by talking about what inspired you to get into the industry to begin with, and then some of your early projects.
Yeah, so I've been acting probably since I was in elementary school. I wasn't ever really good at sports, and I kind of jokingly referred to that. There's the there's the position left tackle, left linebacker. I used to joke that I played left out. So basically, I just
I love it.
I just wasn't very good. And when I was in fourth grade, I did a Halloween play, and I kind of felt like, wow, this is something I can kind of do, and I've kind of enjoyed doing this. And my mom enrolled me, and my dad enrolled me in a acting studio called Young Actor Space, which was an acting studio for teenage television actors. There was Fred Savage went there, Amit Zappa, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kelly Martin. A lot of kind of like the up and comers in the 80s and 90s that were big in the 80s and 90s went there, and I fell in love with it. And I started.
Where was that located?
That was in Van Nuys, California. Van Nuys. So it was in the San Fernando Valley. Yeah. So from a very young age, I was acting, and I think my acting instructors liked me because I wasn't actually pursuing it full time just yet. I was just doing it for the love of craft. But what was kind of cool is that we were working on really great material, because the material we were working on in class tended to be stuff that was episodic television of the time, and we were working on really great theater pieces. So it was really neat, and got a chance to work with some really great theater artists and great actors that way. So ever since then, I kind of caught the acting bug, and I've been acting ever since.
How much of your day did that take up? I mean, it was like school almost.
Yeah, I mean, it actually it was. I mean, I'm a teacher now. I teach acting now, and I think about in terms of how many hours of the day I require my students, and it was pretty intense when I look back on it. We were rehearsing and we were working 3 hours a night, twice a week. So from 5 to 8 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays, I would go to this acting studio. So it was fairly intense for someone who was young. So it was great.
Teach you some discipline very early. Yes.
Great discipline. Really great discipline, and an opportunity to work with some really great people.
So your parents must have had to have a really hands-on role in all this too, right?
Yeah, they were very hands-on. I mean, they were very conscious of the fact that I think they were just excited that their kid who felt left out actually felt in love with something. So I think they were just really excited that I was actually enjoying doing something. So that was kind of cool to have something that basically that they felt that, wow, my kid is succeeding and excelling at something. They weren't really stage parents. They really weren't one to drive me to auditions and stuff like that. It was really more about trying to do something that I really loved, and they recognized that I loved it, and they wanted to give me that. It was only later in life where they basically kind of took on the role. I don't want to say take on the role, but really have been kind of champions and cheerleaders of my career.
That's cool. That's cool. So where were you born?
I was born in Tarzana, California. I was born in LA. I lived in LA most of my life. I went to Calabasas High School. Wow. in the San Fernando Valley, and then I went on to get a degree in acting. I'm a BFA in acting from the University of Southern California, and I got my theater degree there. Did a lot of theater. Hooked up with a lot of really kind of cool people in my BFA acting program, and we started a theater company called the Namaste Theater Company in Hollywood. We acted and did a lot of shows out there, and then I was a working actor for a long time out in Los Angeles, auditioning, hitting the pavement, going auditions, so I've been doing it for a while.
So it was grew up in California, grade school in California. Your parents are from California?
Yeah, my dad went to Cal State LA. My dad lived in LA most of his life. My mom was originally from Texas, and then met my dad, and then they moved out to LA. So we were kind of born, me and my whole family were born and raised in California, born, bred, and raised in California.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and then you went to it's the USC film school that you're talking about, right?
It was actually
And then-
it was actually a theater school. So it
Oh.
was a theater, which is a lot different than the film school, because the film school had these huge, beautiful buildings, the George Lucas building and the Steven Spielberg building, and the School of Theater was this little old tennis locker room building where they basically had all of this all the theater
Nice.
program ran out of the old tennis building. So you could tell who gave money to the school, based upon where we had classes. But it was still a great experience. It was, and I worked with some really great professors, so it was really a great experience.
That is
I can
great. That's a
imagine.
great story. Yeah. Speaking of George Lucas, I saw that George Lucas.
So did I.
in
Yeah, it was
Love,
great.
and I
Did
was
you?
laughing hysterically
That was
the whole
fun.
time.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Anything you want to share about
Yeah,
that?
well,
That was great.
that was actually made with some USC alums. I think my 2 years out of graduating from USC, I got hit up by Joe Nussbaum, who is a director in Hollywood. He's directed a bunch of films, and he wanted to kind of make his first short film to kind of launch himself into Hollywood. And he had this great idea of doing this spoof on Shakespeare in Love, but about George Lucas. And almost everybody in that shoot was a USC grad. And it was a lot of fun. And I played the character of Benji, who is kind of like the kind of stony,
Oh God, yeah.
the
guy in the hoodie.
roommate. The guy in the hoodie,
Exactly.
the roommate,
It was-
roommate. Yeah,
I was sorry we weren't gonna see you again, because I'm like, oh my God, this guy just talked about the Force. I'm sorry, spoiler. Mark, we can leave that. Everybody who watches this, you've got to go to the link below
Really?
and watch it. You will die laughing. It's like the
Yeah.
coolest Star Wars thing you've ever seen, I
It's
swear.
pretty fun.
And
It's pretty fun.
yeah, you just did a great job. And then I understood, oh, they're going to keep moving through this whole thing, and I'm never going to see Jason again, but it was just amazing.
It was fun. It was fun.
Sure.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
What about Roswell? Because growing up,
Oh,
Roswell was
Roswell.
my favorite show, and you played a deputy in 13 episodes.
Yeah,
Mark,
I did.
Mark loves Roswell.
I really
Jason,
do.
by the way.
Yeah.
No,
Deputy
he does.
Hanson.
Nice. Yeah. So I was Deputy Hanson. My third season, I became Sheriff Hanson. So that was a great experience. I mean, I originally booked the role as a co-star, and then it was the first episode that we shot after the pilot, and they loved my deadpan delivery, and they said, would you mind coming back? And then they kept on writing for me, and then I just eventually did a whole bunch of episodes. Jason Katims, who's just the nicest guy, the showrunner on Roswell, was who wrote the original pilot and did eventually Friday Night Lights, was a big fan of mine, and always was very encouraging, always wanting to bring me back. So that was really neat, and I made some really close relationships on that show. I became really close with Bill Sadler, the guy who played
the other
Sheriff Valenti, and we became kind of close. So it was neat to develop those relationships. What's so cool about a show like that, and what happens when you're on for, when you shoot an episodic television, sometimes it feels like you're crashing a party. Like there are all these series regulars, and you come in for one episode and you feel like you're dead and everyone knows each other, and then all of a sudden you wrap and you're never seen again. It's kind of cool when you're doing recurring roles where the writers start to kind of recognize what you as an actor bring to the role, and they actually start crafting and writing for what you bring. So that was a really neat experience, to actually, get new pages and actually offer up my own feedback to the writers of what do you think about this. So that was always neat. That was really, really neat. And it was kind of fun to play the kind of the goofy Barney Fife, dumb sheriff, dumb deputy. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's
it's fun to listen to how these things. I didn't know how things morphed on the spot so much like that. I mean, how long?
Yeah.
How long was that? Like that you were on that show?
I was on for 3 seasons. But every when the shows got picked up, it was always like, is the show going to get picked up or not? And I think basically they always did some big press where they had fans send Tabasco, because Tabasco was a big kind of like storyline part of Roswell. They had
I remember that.
Send Tabasco into the producers. So it was originally on the WB network, or if you remember the WB network, for the first
season
2
1
seasons.
and 2.
And then a chance
UPN.
to UPN, and then UPN the final season. Yeah. So so that was neat. I mean, that actually kind of launched my career in terms of film and TV. And because of that, I was able to get really great representation and went out for a lot of great roles and did a lot of guest starring on television and stuff like that. So that was kind of neat. That was kind of my big break into the industry. So
I used to watch King of Queens. Like, is that a good example of what you're talking about there? That was a great
yeah,
show.
that was a great show. That was a really fun episode to shoot. Jerry Stiller, who is just the king of comedy, he has terrible stage fright, and usually, usually when you're shooting episodic sitcom, it's in front of a live studio audience. And when we shot this one scene, and this one scene I was in at King of Queens, I was a waiter in an all-you-can-eat buffet. And Jerry Stiller, the character, was trying to actually only pay for one meal between the two of them. It was a really, really funny episode. But he had terrible stage fright, so he actually had the entire audience cleared, and we performed in front of just empty seats. And it was really, it was an interesting lesson for me as an actor to like always be mindful of the fact that like, respect your process, know what is going to set you up for success, and don't be afraid to ask for something that you feel is going to set you up for success. So that was a really neat experience. And after we shot it, then they played it in front of an audience, and they add the laugh track in afterwards. But that was a really fun episode and a really fun show to shoot. Really great writers and a lot of fun.
Interesting. So he did that often?
Yeah, and all the time on King of Queens, and I think in Seinfeld too as well. That they whenever he shot, they would clear the set.
No
of
kidding.
Audiences. Yeah.
That is fascinating. And then there's that Christine Applegate show. Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse. That was that was originally on after Friends, I think, on NBC. I did a small little role. On that, which was that was a fun like one-off. I played a delivery man for
delivering flowers. Yeah, it was good.
Delivering flowers for Jesse. Yeah.
L.A. Law, the movie.
Yeah, I did L.A. Law, the movie. I shot that in I think early 2000s, and that was a movie of the week. But the plan was for, if it went well, for it to be a launching of a particular a reboot. And this was before they were doing all these reboots. I mean, everyone's rebooting everything now, but that was before.
Dude, but that show was so freaking big.
Yeah,
it was huge. It was huge.
Oh my, you couldn't get away from it in its time. Yeah,
but it was really, really fun. That was probably my longest shoot as an actor. We shot for 4 weeks in Vancouver, and it was kind of cool. They flew me out first class and all those things, all those fun actor perks. So that was really fun to shoot, and I became kind of close to a few people on the set, which was really neat. Recently, last year, actually, they were shooting the LA Law reboot pilot, and I got a call from the producers saying, would I be willing to redo my role that I had from the movie of the week, which was really kind of cool. I mean, totally unreal. I got the call.
Jason Brackman.
Jason Brackman. I got the call. I got the call 3 times. The first 2 times, I think I hung up on them because I thought someone was playing a trick on me. And the third time I picked it up, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I did. So that was kind of neat. That was a fun shoot, and unfortunately, it didn't get picked up. But it was really great. Corbin Burnson was back, and Blair Underwood. It was. I was really surprised because the writing was really sharp. But it didn't end up going, as a lot of pilots don't end up going. But I think it was an expensive show. Is part of the reason. But it was but it was really fun. It was really fun.
I bet Corbin was fun to be around. At least he seems fun. Is he fun, Corbin?
So fun.
Yeah,
so fun.
He sounds like a riot.
I'm sure the whole cast. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Corbin's totally unfiltered. Says whatever is on his mind, which is always nice. Fun to be around. Yep.
Wow, unreal.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, that's fine. What about Throwstone? Talk about your theater company in Connecticut.
Yeah. So I have been, like I said, I've been acting for a long time, and theater was always my first love. I mean, I love movies, I love television, but theater is really like my passion, where I get my most like joy and where I get my most excitement. So in Connecticut, I lived in Connecticut for about 5 years, and a friend of mine who I went to USC with, we both have a passion for theater, and we both had young kids at the time, and we both were so consumed with our own day jobs, we really didn't have time to kind of flex our artistic muscles. And we got together at like a kids museum one day while we were watching our kids. We had a side conversation and supervising our kids. And we're like, what kind of theater do you love? And we both had a passion for new work. So we are the only professional theater company in Connecticut solely dedicated to new work. We're a professional company. We're an equity company, hire union actors, and we've been doing it now for about 6 years. And I'm the co-artistic director. So it's been a really amazing run, doing some really challenging work, working with some fantastic playwrights.
That sounds
Last
like
year,
a lot of work and no money.
it is a lot of work and it's very little money. Yes, yeah. So my
Bless your
partner and
heart.
I, my partner and I, we're doing all the legwork, and we're happy to write the checks for all the artists we want to work with. But
That's
for
awesome.
us, it's just about like really wanting to tell really important stories. So that's been a real joy and a passion of mine. And this past summer, even though I don't live in Connecticut anymore, I flew up and worked in Connecticut this past summer, which was kind of neat. And the plan is to go back next summer as well.
Oh, that's great.
That is beautiful, a beautiful thing. So you're going to be appearing in the production of We Will Not Be Silent at Gable Stage in Miami. Can you please enlighten me about that?
Yes. So it's fairly heavy. It's a David Myers play. It is the story of Sophie Scholl. Sophie Scholl is, not a lot of people know about her, but she was the only German during World War II to actually stand up against the Nazis. And she formed an organization called the White Rose. The White Rose was an internal organization of young German students recognizing fascism and Nazism for what it was, and actually stood up against the Nazis. And the entire play is an interrogation between this one Nazi, whom I'm playing, and Sophie Scholl. But in the play itself, the character I'm playing is a Nazi, and he says, look, I don't agree with Hitler. I think Hitler's a bad guy, but you know what? Inflation's down. I can afford, there's no crime on the streets. I can afford, my kids feel safe. How bad can it really be? And it's really about the moral sacrifices we sometimes make as human beings to get what we want financially, and what we're willing to swallow morally in order to tolerate that. So it's an important lesson for today's time too. So I'm really excited to work on that. We actually, yeah. So we open in early January, and it's a really challenging piece, but I'm very excited to jump in.
And you always heard that word Hitler, and you hear about Hitler and what Hitler did and what Hitler was and stuff. But there was a lot of people who were living just normal, regular lives.
That's the thing, right? I mean, the thing that blows my mind sometimes is like, you know, that all of the people, that how normalized it was.
They are.
Yeah. And how many people just turned the other cheek and kind of closed their eyes to the atrocities that were going on. People that went.
I'm sure the atrocities were probably not even fully told to them.
Probably,
I'm sure it was nice and glazed over, you know, and if not hidden fully, you know, I'm sure that those German people, if they'd fully known what was going on, it would have immediately turned on, and you know, but the power of the media and all that, and it's staggering, really. And gosh, bless your heart for doing such a great thing.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I was thinking about, I think about it all the time about, like, if there was 24-hour news cable television back then, what would have happened, and how many lives probably would have been saved if there was 24-hour news cycle. But thank you. Yeah. It's an important story, and I'm really excited to dive in. It's a really, really great story, and it's a new play, which is great.
Nice.
Amazing.
Looking forward to it. Now, what about your acting teaching? Talk about that a little bit. That must be really rewarding for you.
It is so rewarding. You know, when I was in LA working as an actor, I hooked up with an organization, the Screen Actors Guild, which is the professional union of television and film actors. They had an organization called Book Pals, which was an acronym for Performing Artists for Literacy in Schools. And basically, these actors would go into socioeconomically depressed areas. So I would go into some pretty rough areas in Los Angeles, and I would teach a drama lesson and read a book to some young kids. And in doing that, I really fell in love with teaching, and I really fell in love with actually that idea of inspiring kids to tell stories and inspiring kids to spark their imaginations. And it was soon after that where, even though I was getting my MFA in acting, I always had in the back of my head, I wanted to teach. So I've been teaching now for 15 years, and I've been teaching primarily in independent schools. I've taught in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a school called St. David's. I was at school at Brentwood for 4 years called Brentwood School. I was in Connecticut at a school called St. Luke's, and I'm currently at a school called the Benjamin School in Palm Beach Gardens. And in all of those schools, I've head up the theater department. And so what's been really exciting is to inspire kids. And just like I've been talking about, you know, We Will Not Be Silent being a really important story, one of the things that I always try to press into my students, that yes, while theater can be about entertainment, really theater should be about asking provocative questions and asking yourselves, how can I better the world in which I'm in? And getting kids to buy into that, you know what, film and the film, theater, and TV is not just about having fun, but actually about changing the world and saving the world, and actually having teenagers buy into that, which is always a challenge to do, has been a really fulfilling thing. And is a feather in my cap, because I've really enjoyed teaching kids and getting them inspired that way.
Well,
and
it's a huge feather, because you're the kind of teacher that goes looking for the students that need you the most. You don't run an ad, hey, I'm a teacher, you can pay me, come and get me, here I am, here's my price. You know, there's two kinds of teachers, and you're the good kind, bro. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what is the main advice that you're giving to these kids, really?
Well, I think the main advice I tell the kids is, and this is true. Well, two things. One is to be present in the moment that you're in. I think sometimes as a young teenager, it's really easy, because I work primarily with high schoolers. It's really easy to be caught up on that grade you just got, or that piece of news your friend just told you, or that guy you have a crush on next period. And you're always either focused on what just happened or what's happening next. And very seldom are you able to truly be in the moment that you're in. And so one of the things I talk about in my class is being present, being truly in the moment that you're in, being alive to everything that is happening as it is happening right now, without worrying about what just happened or what happened next. That's primarily what I teach. And that's my mind philosophy of acting, is just be present. But more than anything, just as kind of a large, kind of wide, macro view of of life in theater, I think what I teach more than anything is own who you are. I think there's a big pressure. I think a lot of kids, especially young girls, to always feel like you are having to morph yourself to be the person that you think the cool kids want you to be. So I talk a lot about owning yourself, owning your individuality, trying to figure out what your own idiosyncrasy that makes you tick. And a lot of kids seem to be buying into that. We're doing one of the first high schools in the country. We're doing Mean Girls, the musical, this coming April, and that's the message of that whole show, basically just owning who you are. I'd rather be me, and rather be me who I am, than be with you and pretending to be someone that I'm not. And so that's something that I've been that's I hope if the kids take away two things, it is be present and own you.
Wow. That's awesome advice, whether you're going to be an actor, director, producer. I mean, that's just a great life approach. To everything, so yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm sorry, Mike, I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's say that
especially in theater too.
Sure.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah.
So if you had unlimited funds to, produce something, would it be, I would obviously be with theater, right? It wouldn't be TV or films. What would you do? Obviously, all of your content that you're doing is so meaningful.
Yeah. That it probably changes daily, because I set out 2 years ago to read a play a day. So I'm always reading a new play, and people ask you, what's your favorite play? It's usually the play that I'm reading right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think I probably I like Anton Chekhov a lot, the old playwright. I'd probably be interested in producing some of his work. What I'd really love to do more than anything, if I had just an unlimited resources, actually commission a new play, is to actually hire a playwright, someone whose work I really love, and say, here is a topic that I'm really passionate about. Write me a play about that, and we'll produce it. That's what I love to do. Write me a new play. Write me a new write me a new piece.
That's a good perspective. I'm that way with entertainment. My favorite thing is what I'm watching right now, because it gets pushed out into the past, and it just goes away. You're right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, but starting with a clean slate and just a raw subject, yeah, that'd be extremely fulfilling to watch that go all the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like everything you do is pretty, socially relevant too. Those things are important.
Try to be. I mean, as much as I can. Look, I'm not a director. I'm not a lawyer. But what I am is a theater artist, and I try to affect change as much as I can with the work that I do. And for me, it's all about starting conversations. That's pretty much the mission of our theater company: is starting conversations with our community. And that's really how change starts, right? Talking to people, asking yourself, how can I be a better human being? what can I do to help the world? How can I, what if change can I affect in the world? So that's really kind of like, if I had a thesis, that's kind of my thesis. You know, what start conversations to actually look inward and try to, you know, make the world a better place.
Do you create content? I mean, the big screen is so big, and television even is so big. Do you create content at the like internet level at all, at the social media or YouTube level at all?
Well, not really. I mean, I also dabble in sound design. I mean, that's also another passion of mine. Usually usually when I'm directing a play, I tend to design my own show. Actually, this We Will Not Be Silent, I'm actually designing sound for that play as well.
What does that entail, really?
Well, a lot. I mean, it's finding sounds and asking yourself, how do these 4 or 5 sounds that might sound interesting in isolation sound together? It's about layering and finding sounds. You know, for We Will Not Be Silent, the director is really wanting kind of loud German noise music, which is kind of like loud industrial kind of punk rock music to play in the transitions, to make it feel raw and of this moment, so it doesn't feel like kind of a World War II museum piece. So I've been kind of on the hunt for that, listening for music. So a lot of it is basically, you know, searching internet, listening to songs, discovering new bands, discovering new sounds. I'm always having an ear for, wow, how would that sound be layering upon each other? So always having your ear. I mean, honestly, having your ear to the table, trying to figure out exactly how would that sound in this moment. So that's kind of a passion. That's what I dabble in. I don't really film anything. Although 3 years ago, because of COVID and because we couldn't direct a play, I directed my first movie with my students. We did a film version of this play called She Kills Monsters. The school I'm at right now has a really state-of-the-art film program. So there's all this really great equipment, and we got to use all their toys and basically shoot a movie on a green screen, which was really fun. And I had a friend of mine who's an animator. The show, if you're not familiar with it, deals with kind of like these 2 sisters, and one of the sisters passes away, but the sister who passed away is really into the D&D, Dungeons and Dragon world. And the play itself, half the play takes place in Dungeons and Dragon world. So in the Dungeons and Dragon world, we filmed it in front of the green screen and animated it all, which was really kind of neat and really fun.
Goodness.
So that was a good time. So that was my first kind of foray into directing and stuff like that. And it's challenging, man. I mean, I think the hardest thing for film is that, first of all, it shoots out of order. And unless you have a really great editor and a really great team around you, it's hard. It's not like in theater, you know, as much as I have a team around me always. I'm a theater company. We have a really great production staff and people working with me. But on a film set, you need like a bunch of people to handle all of the different things that goes into making a movie. And, you know, being in a school, it was challenging because usually I'm wearing multiple hats. So during the process, I felt like I was running around with the chicken with my head cut off, but it was a really great experience learning about how to edit. I actually edited the film myself and edited it on Final Cut, which was my first time using that program, which was neat.
What are your goals right now, really? You've done so much.
Well, I mean, you know, I right now, I try to, as much as I can, do a play a year. I'm teaching and directing at school, but I will probably work with my theater company this summer, hopefully do another show after We Will Not Be Silent in the Florida area, but just try to stay relevant and try to, you know, do work that excites me and that I'm passionate about. I'm also a father of 2 young kids, so try to stay active with my kids' lives and stuff like that, and my wife's life, and just try to be, you know, an all-around decent person, I guess. But I'm always trying to, as much as I can, try to fulfill my own and scratch my own artistic itches, because I think it's important as a theater teacher to show your students that you are not only talking the talk, but you're walking the walk, so they can actually see you are modeling what you're teaching in the classroom. So I'm very excited that my kids are going to have an opportunity to see me act, not to toot my own horn, but so they can actually see that I'm using the techniques we're putting in practice in class. They'll be able to see me put it on stage, which is really neat.
Oh, yeah. So are your students mostly focused on theater then? Is that what they want to do?
Well, I think there's an interesting cross section. I mean, in Florida, there's a big performing arts magnet situation. So a lot of the kids that are very gung-ho tend to go to the performing arts school. So we tend to get kids that are very, very passionate, very talented, but aren't necessarily the kids that have said, okay, I want to go on to do this professionally. We do occasionally have some of those kids, but it's usually kids that basically have other interests, and theater happens to be one of their other interests. But we do really good work. Last year, a play we did called All My Sons is an Arthur Miller play. We participate every year in something called the Cappies, which is basically kind of the South Florida version of the high school Tonys. And our play won Best Play in South Florida last year, which was kind of cool. Even though we might not have the kids that are all, I'm going to be a professional actor, I think we do good work. And I think part of it is because they bought into this idea that theater really is about starting a conversation. And because they really believe the theater can be an agent of change, I think, get pretty decent work from the kids themselves. So that's,
you're a pro, you're experienced.
You really are.
You're applying that experience to good causes, and no wonder you're taking first place, because you're down in it, giving back to the community where not many people often do, so it's just a good feeling story, one after another with you, Jason. It's just
thank you.
It's great that you're out there doing. You don't get caught up in all this, I want to be, this, and I want to be that. It sounds like you want to give back and just really just kind of stay on the ride that you're on because you love it.
It's great.
That's it. That's what it's all about for me.
That's
doing
awesome.
what I love.
That's
and
awesome.
It seems like with you realized at a young age that you wanted to do theater over like TV and films. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's kind of fair. I think part of it is that, and maybe this isn't true for every actor, but film and TV shoots out of order. So there isn't the same satisfaction of actually taking a character on a journey and on a ride. So because of that, I don't know, that for me is the fun of it. It's like a roller coaster ride where basically you're riding all the hills and the valleys, and at the end you went through it all. And in a film set and a TV set, it's different. You're shooting it out of order, and you're basically having to sometimes manufacture and grind yourself to get to some kind of emotional place because the script calls for it, but there isn't necessarily the work that you had, that there isn't basically the lead up to that moment when you're having to shoot. So it's a different skill set. I mean, it's really it's really hard. That's not to say I don't love film and TV. I absolutely love.
No, I can tell. Yeah.
But in terms of like the journey and being on the ride, I think theater is my biggest passion.
And I know what you mean, because I've done a lot of work as a fly on the wall, extra. And when I found out they were shooting out of order, it finally just caught on to me that they're shooting out of order. I'm like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're kind of confused, even as an extra.
Well, they do it for financial reasons, right? So basically, because if everything, if they're going to shoot everything that takes place at the coffee shop, because it's going to save them money, they're only going to shoot at the coffee shop for this amount of weeks. So all the scenes at the coffee shop, we're shooting at the coffee shop. So I get it. It totally makes financial sense, but it's hard. It's hard for an actor.
And then
it's a really hard thing.
You have to piece every single part together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the editor is that's the real hard job, right? Like piecing together and figuring out how all that stuff works, and all the continuity, and if you on this particular line you picked up a fork at this moment, and all those things in live theater you don't have to worry about. It's another it's another skill set. It's hard.
Sure. Well, one thing that was good though about like TV and mostly TV is what I did is shooting out not only in the studios but on location. The location scout finds the best areas across all of LA.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, I remember when we did Roswell, we always, because it took place in New Mexico, we always shot in Corona, which was an area outside of LA, because it kind of had that kind of New Mexico desert landscape, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, it was West Covina too, right? Or no?
Yeah, Corona. Yeah. Corona, West Covina, yeah. LA has so many different, like, I think part of the reason why they love shooting there is that there's so many different landscapes in Los Angeles.
100%.
You could be in the South Pacific, you could be in the desert, you could be in you could be in the Amazon rainforest. I mean, there's so many different looks in Los Angeles, which is so great about it.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, is there anything you want to share with our viewers, Jason? Anywhere like your teaching thing? Or I don't know. How do you communicate?
I think, well, they can reach out to me. I have my own website. It's www.jasonapec.com. You could reach me on my website. I do corporate coaching. I do acting coaching.
Nice.
I coach a lot of kids to get into colleges and grad programs if they're interested in auditioning for BFA or MFA programs. And I also do corporate coaching, people that basically want to learn how to present themselves in a corporate situation. So if they're interested in reaching out to me, I'd love to help them out as much as I can.
I could do a whole half hour on that. Maybe we should do that someday. You got any more questions, Mark?
No, hey, Jason, this was just such an honor, and we're so thrilled to have you on. You're such a great talent, and you do so much for this world.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love John Roswell and the Lucas thing, and I hope the future has more in store for us because you're a really great guy, dude.
Thanks, man. Have a good one, guys.
Great talking to you. Great meeting you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.